Hi everyone, this is the Climbing Flow podcast, and this is the 36th episode. And today's guest is none other than Jesse Dufton. Jesse's got some incredible ascent under his belt. He's a competition climber, he's done a lot of trad, some sport, some winter climbing, and he's got an amazing story to tell. We talk about how Jesse got into climbing. We talk a lot about fear and how he manages his fear and how he's built up his repertoire over the years. We talk about emotional control and confidence and how these have played a big part in his climbing. One thing that really stands out about Jesse is that he's got this inordinate amount of resilience. We talk about how Jesse has learned to, or is still learning how to deal with the pressure that comes with competition climbing and how he uses that in his trad climbing. I will let you listen to the podcast. Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Thanks. How are
Yeah,
you?
good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, all good.
Cool. So thanks for taking the time to chat, Jesse. I appreciate it. How long do I have you for?
How long do you need?
Okay, cool. Well, let's see where it goes. If you get bored, just let me know.
Okay.
So we met about a month ago, and I was under strict instruction to try and ask you original questions. And if I didn't, I would not be allowed to publish the podcast. So I'm going to try my best.
Cool.
So I guess just for the listeners, I think you're probably going to get asked the same question, so it's probably a spiel that you kind of reel off. But how did you get into climbing?
So yeah, say I was a lifer. Um, my dad taught me to climb when I was really little.
Okay,
I did my first route when I was 2 years old, and
okay,
obviously I don't remember that. So my first route was ordinary route on Idwell slabs.
okay,
Um, and then I remember uh, climbing with my dad, kind of in the UK and on multiple trips to Font. And then I led my first route in Cornwall when I was 11, I think. I do remember that. Um, I remember climbing Commando Ridge with him when I was about five, maybe.
okay. Wow.
Um, so yeah, I don't remember the very beginning, but I remember some pretty early kind of experiences with my dad climbing.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what is it that attracted you to climbing?
Well, I guess obviously I didn't get a choice in like getting started in climbing, but what kept me coming back, I think, was getting to go to some amazing places, and going on these wild adventures and doing something that was really engaging both psychologically and physically.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of sets it apart from all the other kind of standard sports is the kind of the adventure and the psychology element as
Yeah.
well as the physical elements. That was what kind of got me hooked and yeah, going to amazing places, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 I
yeah.
mean, it's a very I think it's a very addictive sport, right? I think
Mm.
um, the popularity has grown over the years, and I think my theory behind climbing is that it. I think it works on, like, if we're going to go on a scientific level, it probably works on motivation and how that we can feel like physical and psychological improvements over time, and that
Yeah.
creates dopamine, and I think that's why we keep coming back to climbing.
And I think also there's like a problem, like a puzzle or problem solving element to it as well.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't think I mean, there are other sports that have kind of elements of the same thing, but it's not just about, from an athletics perspective, how hard you can pull or something like that. There's the whole, technique, both physical and psychological,
yeah,
that I think are really important.
yeah,
So that's what keeps it interesting, I
yeah,
think.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I guess what kind of disciplines in climbing are you into?
So I think I'm, yeah, a generalist. I've tried pretty much all the disciplines. I would say that I'm probably, uh, trad climbing is probably what I am most engaged in. But obviously, I've done sport, I've done winter. I'm not very good at bouldering. I do a bit of it, but I'm not very good.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
trad is probably the one that I do most of and that I find kind of most engaging. I think if I separate it from sport, if I think back against my climbing, I can remember like hugely significant trad routes, and I can remember a lot of them. And if I think back to climbing, I can think of two sport routes that I've done that I can actually remember anything about. All the rest of them are great while I'm doing them, and as soon as I've done them, they're just gone. It's
Okay.
just like, yeah.
And why is that? Why do you remember
Um,
trad more?
I think it probably comes down to um, it being more than just how hard you can pull. And that as we were just talking about that problem solving element and the sometimes the fear element as well, and having to hold it together under some quite challenging situations at times. I
Yeah.
think that definitely kind of etches itself on your mind, and also um, because almost all my climbing has been on site. You're having to do that problem solving element, and that means that the experience is kind of enhanced, or it is in my opinion anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's like kind of what for me what sets it apart. Yeah,
Okay. So there's more problem solving involved, and I guess that there's more of a psychological element involved with trad climbing as opposed to sport climbing.
I think so. When you might be climbing up and there's that element of uncertainty about how good your gear is and
Yeah.
whether or not it's going to be enough to catch you if you were to blow it. That adds something that just isn't there in sport climbing because you know that the bolt is good enough,
Well, you
and you
hope so,
know that you're
right?
not. Well, yeah, you tell yourself that the bolt is good enough.
Yeah.
Um, um, Whereas sometimes, you place a piece of gear and it might be a bit psychological.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a
So
bit of
I guess how do you deal with that kind of fear?
I think that for me comes down to experience and knowing kind of the signals that my body gives off when I am scared and recognizing those and being able to function even though you're scared. I think
Yeah.
that's the important thing. I don't think you can ever truly kind of squash the fear because your body's giving you that signal, probably for very good reason. But the more experience you have and the more kind of times you've been through that situation and come out the other side, the more you're able to push the kind of debilitating effects of fear down and um, focus on what you can do right here, right now to give you the best chance of making that move or, you know, um, yeah, getting out of that, getting through that situation in a good way, and not fixating on the consequence of what would happen if you were to blow it,
Okay.
because focusing on that, I don't think focusing on that consequence actually helps at all,
Yeah.
you know.
But it's hard to do,
So
isn't it?
it
I think
is
as climbers we sometimes focus on the what ifs. We're above a piece of gear and we kind of hope that it stays and doesn't blow and think about the consequences if it does blow and then the focus becomes that as opposed to the actual climbing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the that's for me, the more experienced I've got, the better I've got. Once you've placed the gear and once you've gone above it and you're kind of committed to trying to go upwards and not thinking about retreat, to pushing thinking about the consequence away from front of mind because that won't help you perform the moves better.
Yeah.
It'll only act as a detriment.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so is that
yeah,
something that I guess you've built that trust in yourself up over time
I think so.
to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think so. I know obviously you learn the most from experiences that at the time were, not necessarily that fun, but they taught you something. So there
Okay.
have been, for me, a couple of routes in particular that really, um, yeah, like
They've
good
almost
examples.
traumatized you.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. But I guess so. So how do you deal with that? Because I guess I can relate to what you're talking about because I've had similar scenarios where
Hmm.
I've been in situations where uh, I've thought that, do you know what? I can't fall here because if I do, then that's it. I'm gone, and potentially my
Mm.
climbing partner too. Um, and I've been in some of those scenarios. And if I were to go back in time before having had that experience, I think I'd have been put off by climbing completely.
Okay. Um, so I think when I look back, I don't I don't beat myself up over the decisions I've made. There are certain times where I've kind of gone into a route and not really appreciated how kind of unsuited to me it was, or how kind of the gear was. But that wasn't something that that I knew before. It's not that I would go back and make a different decision, I don't think.
Okay.
Um, uh, so I think the main thing is that's from those experiences. Obviously, I've gained experience and I've learned things, and hopefully, that I can apply those going forward. And you learn from mistakes, don't you? And you try to make sure that
Yeah.
the mistakes you make aren't um, yeah, impactful ones. And you try to, if you don't make the same mistake twice, then yeah, I think that's
Okay.
a good thing.
So do you feel that you're quite able to separate the emotion from the situation from the facts of the situation?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the things I am very good at, actually, like emotional control. Obviously, it's not like I'm a total automaton, but when situations are serious, I think I'm reasonably good at pushing the emotional side down and going back to, the logic and the calculated assessment of the situation and what's
Okay.
going to help in the here and now. That's
Okay.
probably one of my strengths, I think.
Okay. So do you feel so I seem to notice a pattern with a lot of trad climbers,
Hmm.
and especially I guess being part of the CC club. So it's a climbers club for anyone listening,
Hmm.
where the majority of the members are older. There's quite a few older males, and I think a lot of the members seem to be either engineers or scientists or that kind of they have jobs where they have that analytical mind.
Hmm.
So do you feel that the way your mind works lends itself well to, I guess, distinguishing between the emotion and the actual physical?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of that is a personality thing, how much is an experience, and how much is a like a professional thing. Obviously, I fit into that bracket. My professional life is science and engineering based, so still got that analytical mindset. I've never really thought too much about how much each of those different elements have contributed to my approach.
Okay.
But I think I recognize what you're saying.
Yeah.
There is certainly a large percentage of the British trad climbing population that come from a STEM background, I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
But it's definitely a skill to be able to do that and to be able to, because I
Hmm.
think I guess with the work that I do, so I do a lot of work with helping people deal with the fear of falling on sport and trad and
Hmm.
stuff. And I guess it's it's quite a beneficial trait to have to be able to kind of go, okay, well, this is emotional and that's not related to what I can actually see, and I can
Hmm.
see the facts, and the facts are this, and my emotions, I recognize those, but they seem to be not helping me in that situation.
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head there. You've got to be able to disassociate the emotions from the situation, because I think that quite a lot of people allow their emotions to run the show, even when from an analytical perspective, the risk to them is very, very low. If you're worried about falling off in an indoor climbing wall, for example, when you're, on the penultimate clip, you're not in very much danger there, and it's
Yeah.
your emotions that are, running the show there.
Yeah.
You flip that around, and if you're on like a really, you know, dangerous route, your emotions will be telling you that you're in danger, and you are. But get allowing the emotions to run the show at that point isn't the way to get out of that situation,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, complete. I mean, I agree. Well, I've been in serious situations where
Mm,
I think the emotions have crept in and had to give myself a talking to because there was no way out apart from to go up, and that was
yeah,
it. I had no other choice. And that moment of realization of actually, do you know what, Kev? This is just not helpful. Just focus on what you actually need to do and
yeah,
just slow down your breathing, slow down what you're thinking about, and just focus on one move at a time, and then to see what happens.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think that one of the things I find really helpful in those sort of situations is to think back to all the situations that I've been that are similar before, and
yeah,
also the hours and hours of training, because that all gives you confidence. If you think about the number of laps you put in on a circuit board or something like that, for me, you're like, right, I've put in tens of thousands of laps on these boards. My endurance is good enough to hold on to these holds, and that helps to settle my mind. And therefore, I climb better.
yeah. Sounds like you have an inordinate amount of resilience, mental resilience.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to judge your own homework, do you? But I think that that's something that I've, heard a lot is that, yeah, people would say that about me, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer on-sighting or do you prefer projecting?
On-sighting. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that the problem solving element add something to add something to the experience, and especially when you combine that with the psychological control needed. When you're having to find a sequence and there might be pressure, because it might be, a big run out with an uncertain level of protection. That's obviously what adds challenge. But the flip side of challenge is that when you do it well, you get good reward.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is the most kind of rewarding style of climbing. In terms of projecting, I've hardly done any.
Okay.
Like I can think of three routes now, two sport routes and one trad route that I've projected.
Yeah.
So compared to thousands of routes that are done on site, so
Yeah.
it's my ratio is a bit skewed.
Yeah, yeah, it's much harder to on-site, and I think like people probably have a view of, I guess projecting is hard because you can choose an objective that is physically much harder, but I
Mm,
guess then it's just a matter of time where you build up um the muscle memory and the strength to be able to complete a route. And I guess when it comes to on-sighting, it's much harder because you you don't know where the best holds are, you don't know where the best gear is, you don't know where a lot of these things are, and the experience is everything is new from the moment that you jump on the rock.
I think a huge level of extra skill is required for on-sighting compared to projecting.
Okay. What skills
Awesome.
in your
Well,
mind?
in my mind, there's obviously the whole gear aspect. That is definitely a skill, and placing good gear. As you said, being able to kind of understand sequences and find them. And then there's the psychological as well, which is, being able to execute those sequences that you've just found with the additional pressure of having the uncertainty of if I was to blow this, what's the outcome going to be?
Yeah,
Um, I think all of those, if you flip it around looking at projecting, they don't exist because you've worked the route on top rope. You know where all the best gear is. You know what the move is. You're never uncertain about whether or not the sequence you're about to commit to is a dead end.
Yeah.
you know, that, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the uncertainty that sometimes that people also find hard to deal with.
Mm,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
definitely, yeah, it's
That's part of the game,
definitely,
though. It's definitely
pardon?
part of the game.
Yeah,
That's
it's part of
definitely
the game.
dealing with the
Yeah.
uncertainty is the game. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 and that comes with time, right? And I think the uncertainty is sometimes puts people in a very uncomfortable situation, and with that comes
Mm.
sometimes hesitation.
I think if talking about the resilience thing, I think that's probably the fact that I've done all this on sighting has built up my resilience
Yeah,
over the years.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's a fair comment.
yeah, yeah. Cool. So, you've done some winter climbing, you said, you
Hmm.
sports
Yep.
trads, any big walling?
No, I guess that's the like the hole in my repertoire, I guess. Not many big walls in the UK, I
No.
guess is the primary reason. And I, I yeah, we were in California last week and climbing in Pine Creek, and some guy was, "Oh, have you been to Yosemite?" And I was like, "I don't fancy going to Yosemite, like with the whole circus of the nose. It just doesn't appeal to me at all."
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I've just heard too many horror stories about the crowds, and just that's not my idea of fun, really.
Yeah.
Like,
I guess do you like being away from people?
I think, yeah, and in nature and not, kind of with a whole circus, and it kind of spoils the serenity when there's a another team hooping and hollering or having an epic, or you get sucked into what some other teams are doing, and that kind of detracts from the experience that you were after, in my opinion, at
Yeah, yeah,
least.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
guess
yeah.
the other thing for me is that I'm not very good at climbing quickly, so anything with like big walls, uh, yeah, I might find going quick enough to do them in a sensible time challenging.
Okay, just I guess just bring enough supplies, bring
Mm,
enough water and
yeah.
enough food, and yeah, it can make it
And I
quite.
guess the other thing is that also I've never really got into any kind of like form of aid climbing, and
Okay.
lots of, big walling, there will be aid sections on it. Not
Yep.
obviously not exclusively. Um, there are, big wall free objectives, but I think that quite a lot of the people who do big walling use at least some aid, and that's something I've never really got into. So
Okay. Ever tried it?
no, not really.
No.
I guess that for me, I put quite a lot of effort into improving my free climbing and my on-sighting,
Yep.
and having invested all that energy and time, the thought of going and doing aid climbing where all that effort doesn't really apply, you know, doesn't really appeal at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, no,
So,
of course, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's I guess speaking from experience, it's quite it's very different to free climbing,
mhm.
and it can feel at times like super intense because every single piece of gear when you're edge climbing you put in has to at least be able to hold your body weight, and
Yeah.
it's a great exercise in learning how to trust your gear.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about fear. How do you deal with, I guess, fear when you go on sighting?
I think for me, there are a couple of kind of physiological clues that I'm really keyed into. Um, so when I start to kind of feel the fear building, I really pay attention to my breathing rhythm, and like when I control my breathing rhythm, I can feel my pulse slowing, and when I can feel my pulse slowing, that's what enables me to relax.
Yeah.
Um, and also, if I'm pumped, but I'm on a hold that's big enough for me to rest on and recover, I find that I can kind of dial into the tingling feeling in my forearms that I get when my forearms are recovering. And when I have that recovery feeling, that really helps to kind of settle my nerves, and yeah, makes me relax.
Yeah.
And I really focus on those feelings, and that's what I'm really paying attention to when I'm in a situation that needs it,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
That
Yeah,
that makes complete sense. I think I can give you the scientific explanation as to what's going on
sure,
if you're willing to listen. Uh,
sure.
so 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 our heart rate is linked in with our breathing rate. So the faster we breathe, the faster the heart goes. The slower we breathe, the slower the heart rate goes. When we breathe into our chest, we take in a smaller amount of air. And when we breathe into the chest, that's linked in with the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight and flight response. When we breathe in using our diaphragm, so the lower part of our lungs, we take in a bigger volume of air. So we're going to breathe at a slower rate than if we breathe into our chest, which is a smaller amount of air, so more regular. The vagus nerve is connected with our diaphragm and goes into our brain. And the vagus nerve's function, 75% of its function is related to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest part of our nervous system. So when we're breathing in, slowing down our breathing rate, our heart rate slows down. When we breathe into our diaphragm, the calming part of our brain kicks in, and when we calm down, one, we get more oxygen into our blood. We release tension in our muscles, so we get more oxygenated blood into our forearms and the rest of our body. That's the scientific explanation.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I would concur. For me, it's all about the feeling.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of feelings that when I feel them, that is triggered by what you were just talking about, but they're the things that I associate with relaxation.
Okay.
And even if the situation is serious, when I kind of feel, my pulse slowing or my that tingle in my forearms when they're recovering, that's what puts my mind at ease.
Yep.
And I rely on those.
Okay. So you're very attuned to, I guess, the what you're feeling in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah,
I, th
definitely.
I think it's something that maybe I think it's something that climbers could really do with practicing, and something that
Hmm.
I see maybe people sometimes struggle with. Yeah, and breathing is
Hmm.
so underrated.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I think it's not really something that I've consciously worked on off the wall,
yeah,
but from kind of plenty of climbing experience and kind of knowing how my body reacts through training, those are the things that I'm keyed into.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think what most of us do when we are exerting a lot of effort is we hold our breath, and
Mhm.
lots of climbers tend to do that. And I guess when we're
Yeah, guilty.
yeah, yeah, and when like
Guilty.
sometimes I'm climbing and I'm not perfect, and I might fall off or sit on the rope or come down, and I'm panting, and I'm like, well,
Mhm.
why am I panting? Have I just been holding my breath? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Or when we're
And to a
scared.
certain extent, there are situations where you do need to hold your breath for that,
Okay.
like to maintain core
Yeah,
tension.
yeah,
Um, but obviously the key is to only hold your breath through those hard sequences and then to be able to rest and recover. One of the things that I think is actually quite interesting is that I hadn't really noticed this, but someone pointed it out to me. When I clip, I totally relax, and that kind of breaks up the rhythm of the route for me. So it kind of, without me really thinking about it, it builds in these kind of reset moments and pauses for relaxation,
yeah,
and stops me getting kind of holding my breath for too long and running out of juice, basically.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Is that because
yeah.
you're so super focused in the moment on either placing gear? Is that because you're feeling some form of fear? Um, and then because sometimes I see people who are climbing and then they place a bit of gear, they clip, and then they relax. And
Mhm.
for some people, it's fear related.
I'm not sure it's fear related because it happens like when I'm climbing indoors as well, where there's no real kind of fear element. I think I just have almost like a Pavlovian response of when I clip the rope, I relax.
Okay, cool. Something that you just
Um, Built
built
up
up,
over
a habit you
years.
built up over time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Obviously, it does apply with trad once you do relax when you've got a good piece in, especially if the run out was big. But I do it for any time I clip, whether or not there's a big run out or not.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And
Um,
you used to, or do you still compete?
I still compete. Yeah.
You still compete? Okay.
Um, yep.
And
So
how do
I
you find that? How do you find competition climbing?
um, stressful, I think. I think that it seems strange to me that uh, if you compare trad routes and competition climbing, trad routes where the consequences of failure could be extremely serious, I find that less stressful than the competition climbing. I think there are a couple of elements to that. One is that when you compare the amount of trad climbing that I've done to the amount of competition that I've done far more trad climbing than I've done competition climbing. So it's more kind of standard for me.
Okay.
But I think also there's a lack of control imposed by comps. You don't get to choose what you climb. You don't get to choose when you climb it. You don't get a second chance. There's a whole load of stuff that's out of your control.
Yeah.
But I would say that doing the competitions definitely transformed my outside climbing, both from the being able to deal with those extra psychological pressures, but also from the kind of the transformation of getting into structured training and the physical benefits that that's brought has been a game changer for my outside climbing.
Yeah.
So they complement each other very well, I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So do you feel that do you still, I guess, do you feel that the training, the physical training helps with feeling more confident?
I think so. Yeah. Um, when you're stood at the base of a route that's going to be hard for you, and you can think back to the amount of effort that you've put into preparing for that, it helps to quash any kind of imposter syndrome. You
Yeah.
know, any kind of thoughts about, oh my God, this route's really hard. There's no way I could do this. When you think back about the thousands and thousands of hours that you've put into training, you're like, actually, no, this is well within my capabilities. And, you know, if I apply myself and get all the steps right, then this is within my capabilities. That helps to relax. And then if you're relaxed, you have a better chance of, being successful, I think.
Yeah. So you're very pragmatic. You very think very pragmatically about things.
I think so. Yeah, but it's definitely a good confidence booster. Especially, if you have some metrics for you, you know whether or not you're climbing well. And if you know that, your physical metrics are good, that's, it helps to get the right mindset before you leave the deck, right?
Yeah, completely. It completely helps. I think when I'm in peak physical form, I
Mm,
feel a lot more confident in myself and my ability, than when I'm not in peak form. But I think sometimes my motivation pushes me beyond my physical capabilities.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like a kid in a sweet shop sometimes. Yeah. So you talked about being able to deal with pressure. I guess
Mhm.
competitions come with a lot of pressure.
They do. Especially when maybe the first route hasn't gone to plan, and it's all riding on the second route or on the final. Being able to kind of compartmentalize those performances, and if the first route was disappointing, to push that away from anything that's front of mind. That's definitely a skill that I've got better at over the years, and is kind of another tool in that psychological toolbox, um, which is applicable not just to competitions but to all climbing, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
It's amazing, isn't it?
yeah.
How a tool like climbing can teach one so much about oneself.
Mm,
Yeah. I think like
yeah.
I think climbing for me definitely has pointed out over the years my weaknesses, and I think climbing is the vehicle, and you certainly taught me a lot about myself.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you feel? Let's go back. How do you so you mentioned something about trad climbing. How do you decide whether a climb is too risky?
So I would say that actually I'm pretty conservative when it comes to risk. I'm going to be staying away from the routes that are at the kind of the more dangerous end of the spectrum. I'm not really into that. Obviously, there is some risk that's always inherent in any form of climbing, but particularly trad. But it's not. You'll never get me like going towards the E14Cs or anything like that. I'm always
Yeah.
going to be picking routes that are at the higher end of the difficulty range, physical difficulty range for a particular grade.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the risk thing, it's inherent, but it's not something that I seek.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
so,
So the trad grades for anyone listening, the trad grades are quite. It took me quite a long time. So I'm not English. I came to the UK when I was 15, and the UK grades took me quite a while to understand what they meant. So you've got an overall grade, which is the ejectable grade, and then you have which is like VS, HVS, E1, and so on. Then you've got the technical number, which is could be 5C, 6A, 6B, etc. And then you have the relationship between the two. So if you have a high ejectable grade and a low technical grade, then it's going to be quite run out or the gear is not going to be that great. If you have a lower ejectable grade and a higher technical grade, then the physical moves are going to be much harder, but there's going to be much more gear available.
yeah,
So that's
I
what
always
you
think of
prefer.
it, I think so, yeah. I always think of it as a bit like speed equals distance divided by time. You've got that relationship between three things: the overall grade, the physical difficulty, and the danger. And if you know the physical difficulty is high for the given grade, you know that the danger is going to be relatively low for that grade. And those are always the routes that I'm more into those routes than I am to the physically easy but very bold routes.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think
yeah.
I think there'll be maybe other people listening that might prefer the lower technical grade because they feel that they can climb that, and then
Mhm.
maybe not quite understand or maybe think, well, I'll accept the risk. Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you feel that your relationship with fear has changed over the years?
Um, I think certainly to begin with. So I remember when I was younger, I was scared of heights. And I think that that changed and like I'm no longer scared of um, the situation. I'm only scared of the consequence.
Okay.
Um, so if you're looking at a big run out, but your last piece of gear was really good, and it's you're looking at a fall that you might go a long way, but you're not going to hurt yourself. I don't find that particularly scary, even if you go a long way. But what is scary is when you don't have confidence in your gear, and the consequences of falling off might be serious. I think as time's gone on, I've got better at tying my fear more directly to the consequence rather than to any kind of irrational kind of triggers.
Okay.
And I think that's just an experience thing.
Yeah.
And the more time you spend, in these situations, I remember when I was learning to lead, um, or when I was younger and climbing, I found some sea cliff climbing quite off-putting. Like when you're climbing in the zones down in Cornwall, you can hear the wave come in, smash into the back of the zone. You can kind of feel the pressure wave of the air being displaced. It's
Yeah.
quite an intimidating environment, especially when you're about 10 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Completely.
So I think those experiences have stood me in good stead. And I'm not as freaked out by those as, I used to be.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
think that's like an important learning point. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like sea cliff climbing is extremely intimidating, and to
Hmm.
go and do that as at a 10 or as a 10 or 11-year-old, I mean, everything seems so much bigger, right? The sea is such a powerful thing that when you're right above it, it makes you feel like a tiny little speck of dirt, and nature will
Mm.
have its way with you whether you like it or not. Um, I
It
think,
certainly puts your position in the universe into some kind of perspective when you have those huge natural forces, and it makes you realize quite how insignificant you really are.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
completely. I think in our
Mm.
heads we feel we are so because we're in our heads we feel that we're not. I'm not going to say the world turns around us, but it does. We see everything from our own
Mm.
perspective, and it's quite hard to imagine otherwise that when we get into those situations, and I get that feeling when I go into the
Mm.
mountains, that I think especially when the weather's pretty bad, nature is so powerful. It makes me feel insignificant and makes me realize that I'm grateful for where I am.
I think you've hit it on the head there. The weather, extreme weather situations are a really good example of, where you really get to witness the force of nature, and also build up your resilience. If you're able to focus on what needs to be done, even when the wind's blowing a hoolie and it's really cold, that'll stand you in good stead.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Cool. Yeah. Um, have you ever had a moment when I guess fear's been too much and you thought, well, this is a terrible idea?
I had, there's always one route that for me stands out. Kinvig in Pembroke, E1. And I kind of got up onto it, placed some gear, and then realized that I probably couldn't reverse those moves. And the two wires I'd placed, I didn't have any confidence on them. I think that's probably the time when I've been most scared, but it also, as well as being a harrowing experience, is also one of the valuable ones
Yeah.
because it taught me that when the situation really does get serious, I do have the mental tools to be able to push all that down and focus on what I need to do right here, right now. And that has, stood me in good stead for future routes. I never want to be in that position again. Um, but I know that I don't have total control over that, and there might be some route in the future that is a similar situation. And the more times you have confidence in your ability to stay calm under pressure, the easier it is to stay calm under pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess in some sense you've had a very positive experience because you managed to climb your way out of it.
I climb my way up.
Yeah. I guess
I
if
wouldn't
you
say it was a positive experience.
I mean, sorry, a
Yeah.
positive
Yes.
ending to the experience.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess reaffirming that in that moment at that time, I guess it just reaffirms to you that okay, cool, I can do
Mm.
this. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think that's the most extreme one. There have been kind of a couple of other situations. I went to Greenland in 2017 for an expedition in like the middle of nowhere in the Storning Alps, and we had a situation where um, one of the anchors ripped out while we were attempting to lower people, and like three of my friends just disappeared like 270 meters down the mountain.
Oh no.
When you're in the situations like that, and there is no rescue, it's just down to you. Um, they're not fun at the time, but you definitely grow and learn from them.
So what
Um,
happened?
we were incredibly lucky. My friend Ollie bruised his middle finger, and one of our tubs of couscous exploded. But apart from that, no one was hurt. Like as they went down this, like it wasn't totally vertical, but near vertical snow slope. But then it rounded out at the bottom. The only tricky thing was that Molly and I had not obeyed like textbook practice, and we weren't connected into the anchor system. So we were just left sat on this snow ledge that we'd kicked, at the top,
Yeah.
with no axes, no ropes, nothing. And our mates are like 270 meters down below, so had to very, very gingerly kick steps down this, not quite vertical, and certainly felt vertical snow slope to get back down. And yeah, collect the carnage at the bottom of all our equipment that had been smashed over itself.
Yeah. So that
Yeah.
was just you and Molly making your way down the snow slope.
Yeah, exactly. So I went first and kicked all the steps, and then she followed behind. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
W- Text not yeah, we should have been connected in a textbook situation. We should have been connected into the anchor, but as things happened, we weren't, and that meant that when the anchor failed, we weren't yanked off the
Yeah,
ledge
yeah, yeah,
as
yeah.
our other friends were.
So in
So
some respects, you were lucky.
in some respects, we were lucky. Yeah, it taught me to like be really respectful of the different snow conditions because the anchor that we'd built was a buried ski, a dead man, and a snow bollard, all equalized. But the
Yeah,
problem is that because Greenland is so cold and it stays cold, there's not the freeze thaw cycle to consolidate the snow.
yeah,
So even when we'd done our very best to spread the load in those snow conditions, it just wasn't enough.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
So
And
yeah,
you're
we chose not to tell the parents about that until we got back from Greenland.
oh my God. How what when was this?
2017, April
Okay.
2017.
Right, okay, so nine
So
years ago. Okay.
yeah,
Wow. Okay. So could you realize that your friends were okay once they'd kind of fallen off?
yeah, they were okay, fortunately. But there was definitely a moment when they were going when I thought it was going to be a more serious.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, wow.
yeah, there was
Okay.
definitely a moment of terror as they were going, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, okay. Heart stopper. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm
Because
glad they
you're
came away with a bad finger, just a one bad finger.
one bad finger and popped couscous. Yeah.
Oh, oh my goodness. Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I guess yeah, that's pretty intense. Um, have your motivations changed over time?
Um, I wouldn't have said they changed very much. I think that I'm always about finding the routes that I will have a rewarding experience on. So for me, it's mostly finding that sweet spot of kind of physical difficulty and kind of the appropriate level of challenge for me. I You don't want to do routes that are way too hard for you, and either you end up with this traumatic experience that isn't fun, or you just can't do it on the one side. And you don't want routes that are too easy for you because, if they're too easy, I don't remember it. I just kind of am in on autopilot. So the most rewarding experiences, I think, are the ones where you can do them, but only if you focus and do everything right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
those are the ones that really stick in my head. And I think that kind of seeking of those challenging sweet spot routes has remained pretty constant throughout my climbing life.
Yeah. But I guess there's a bit of an art, right? There's a bit of an art to be able to choose the appropriate challenge for oneself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. I think some people maybe choose a safer option and choose something that's within their ability.
Hmm.
Because again, the outcome is uncertain if they choose
Hmm.
a challenge. Some people might choose to really challenge themselves and go way beyond their physical and their mental ability, and that works for some people, or it could end up being a negative experience. And I guess there's a
Mm.
real art to choose the appropriate level.
Yeah, I think you want routes where you are a little uncomfortable, but not totally traumatized.
Yeah,
Because if you find routes that where you're a little bit uncomfortable, that builds your resilience and enables you to take the next step next time.
yeah.
Whereas if you pick something that's like four steps beyond what you're really capable of, that might wind up turning into either an extremely harrowing and dangerous situation, which you definitely want to avoid, or just a really unpleasant experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and that encourages growth, right? Like you're putting
Mm.
yourself into ever heard of something called the learning zone model?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so where you've got comfort zone, you've got learning zone, and then you've got panic zone, and you're choosing something that's in your learning zone because you're picking something that's exciting, but you have the skills to be able to work there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and those are the routes that I find most rewarding.
Yeah.
You get that satisfaction of having risen to the challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess you do a lot of climbing with Molly,
Yeah.
your partner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my life partner.
What I guess do you climb with other people?
Yeah, I will climb with other people, but obviously Molly and I, we live together, climb together. So it's a rare situation where, we'll climb with other people just from a logistical basis.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not that I particularly dislike climbing with other people, but obviously I love climbing with Molly. So yeah,
Yeah. So has your what I guess what let me just have a look at some of the questions. So I guess what is it that you look for in a good climbing partner?
I think someone that remains calm under pressure, and I think you preferably have been through a reasonably stressful experience with,
Okay.
because you know how they're going to react when it gets serious.
Yeah.
So, using Molly as an example, obviously she was there in Greenland for, that harrowing anchor failure. She was belaying me when I was on Kinvig. There have been quite a few situations that have been intense, let's put it like that.
Yeah.
And I know that when it's serious, she doesn't lose her head. You
Okay.
know, I think that that's a a big thing for me. I think I'm always a bit cautious if I was to climb with someone who I hadn't ever experienced an intense situation with. You
Yeah.
never know how they're going to react. You
Yeah.
never know if they're going to lose their head at the most inopportune moment when the consequences are at their highest.
Yeah.
So having that kind of level of trust, um, I don't know how you can assess it, but I think you can. Like with anyone that's climbed a lot, you can judge their experience.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for climbing partners where I trust their judgment.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it's having that open channel of communication, right?
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
do you feel that your you climbing together has changed your relationship away from the rock?
That's really hard for me to answer because we've been together for quite a long time now, and
Yeah.
climbing has always been a part of our
Okay.
relationship.
Yeah.
We both climbed before we met each other, and we were both leading trad routes when we got together. So climbing has always been a part of that relationship. So it's
Okay.
hard to split the two things out, if
Yeah.
I'm honest.
Sure. I guess you two grew together through I guess through common interest.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 Cool. Has Molly ever given you some bad beta?
Oh, she must have done. I think she's usually pretty good. Are there any times when it's been really bad beta? I mean, maybe sometimes, but you know, who who hasn't? Who hasn't? So,
Yeah,
um,
I've got friends that love giving beta whilst I'm climbing, but they now know
yeah.
not to give any because I've made it very clear to them. Yeah.
Oh, I'm quite happy to accept beta. That's fine with me.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
being in the zone. I like to have a plan in my head, even if it's the wrong plan,
Hmm.
and I like to try and execute it. And then if I make a mistake, then I can learn from my mistakes and hopefully try and come
Hmm.
up with something else. And then if I need some advice, I will ask.
Yeah. Okay. I'm quite happy to receive beta, and if I think it's wrong, I just disregard it, and I'm what Molly calls disobedient, basically.
Disobedient, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess what's been the most emotionally rewarding climb for you?
So I think that probably has to be when I climbed Fork Lightning Crack. Um, and yeah, that was really significant for me because that represented breaking through quite a big barrier for me. Making that step from E1 up to E2 was quite a yes significant kind of threshold in my climbing.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Why is
if I
that?
had to pick, that's because it's harder than anything I had ever climbed before I lost my sight.
Okay.
Um, so that's really what makes that route unique. Um, so to fill the gaps in for any of your listeners, um, I'm now completely blind. When I was younger, I had a limited amount of sight, and my climbing got to the point where I was on sighting E1,
Yeah.
and then I lost my sight, and obviously my climbing level dipped, and I basically had to start again and work out how to climb without the use of my eyes.
Yeah.
And in 2019, I kind of got back to leading the Old Man of Hoy, and that was kind of equaling where I'd been before I lost my sight. And then in 2020, when I climbed Fort Lightning Crack, that was the first E2 I'd ever attempted and then successfully led. And for me, that was hugely significant because that was um, breaking through that barrier imposed by my lack of eyesight,
Yeah.
um, and almost, not allowing my disability to put a ceiling on my climbing.
Yeah.
So even though I've now climbed harder and I've on-sighted E3 and I've head pointed E5, for me, that one route and what it represents will always be probably the most significant thing, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was that quite an emotional moment for you?
Yeah, I think it was. I'm not particularly given to huge shows of emotion, but people who know me well um, can recognize that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel do you feel that being in your position, being in the limelight, do you feel that that comes with pressure?
Um, I don't think it's any extra pressure other than what I impose on myself, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't climb for anyone other than me. No one tells me what I should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Any routes that I want to do, it's a conscious effort for, conscious decision for me to go and climb. I don't feel any kind of external pressure to go and do these routes. And I get very irritated when like a non-climbing journalist or something like that portrays a route that I've climbed as like a one-off stunt or challenge or something like that. And I'm like,
The stunt.
guys, yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's not a stunt.
No, it's
It's
a
not a stunt.
lifestyle.
Well, yeah, it's not like a one-off. I said earlier, Molly and I have logged over 2,000 routes together on UKC, and we don't put everything on UKC. So I've just lost track of the number of routes that I've done. This one route that you happen to be, thinking about, it's not a stunt or a one-off. Look
Yeah.
at the other thousand.
Yeah. 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 Any routes
So,
you would never climb again? Not through bad experience, just because they're a bad route.
just because they're a bad route. Oh, and that's not. Hmm. I can't think of it. So the obvious one when you said that was Kinvig because I didn't want to relive that
Okay.
experience of, I've lived it and I've learned from it, but I don't want to do it again.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, in terms of other routes that I thought were just bad routes, I don't think so. Unless there was like an element of danger, and I didn't want to kind of expose myself to that again.
Yeah.
Um, the ones that I just thought were meh routes, I've just wiped them from my mind, to be honest. So I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to tell
Yeah.
you which ones they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I climbed a load of routes in Stanage last year. I think yeah, it was last year.
mhm.
But a lot of the starred VS routes and there's quite a few routes that shouldn't get any stars. Shouldn't even be in
Okay.
the guidebook.
Okay.
That's why I thought I'd ask. Um,
Yeah.
I guess what has climbing taught you about yourself?
I think the big thing is the ability to kind of function under pressure.
Yeah.
And obviously that's something that's incredibly important in climbing, especially in trad climbing when the consequences can be serious. but it reads a definite skill that reads over to other elements of my life. When you've got some important presentation or deadline or piece of work in a professional context, I think the ability to not let that importance stress you out is something that my climbing has built, um, and is really a valuable skill.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's what climbing has taught me most, um, as well as all the positive experiences that you get to go to Greenland with your mates for a month, you know,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that, or out in China in Li Ming in the middle of nowhere, these amazing places all over the world, and it's a great excuse to travel, right, and see
Yeah.
these places that you would never normally go to.
Yeah.
Um,
With hopefully
and
not
that's what's
not
climbing.
not many people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Unlike Yosemite.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Yosemite's great, but if I had to choose between Yosemite and Kochimo, I'd choose Kochimo.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I was only
So,
teasing. Um,
it's all
yeah.
good.
So what mental challenges do you feel do you have to work on within yourself?
Well, obviously, the whole staying calm under pressure is something that you can always improve. However good you are at it, you can always be better. And that's something that I'm kind of quite conscious on working on. Um, I think that actually, applying that staying calm to a competition context is probably one of my biggest work-ons at the moment,
Yeah.
because in the last couple of competitions, I feel that I've rather kind of rushed the routes, and that when I've come off, it hasn't been because I've been pumped out of my mind. It's because I've made a mistake because I was rushing and didn't, you know, properly take the time to focus.
Okay.
So that actually is like a work on for me.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
So
I think.
so how do you deal with that? I get talk me through your process.
So part of it is the same as any other kind of climbing in terms of getting yourself into a good headspace before you leave the ground. And for me, that's a combination of paying attention to your breathing rhythm and your like physiological clues, as well as putting yourself into the same headspace that you can remember from when you've done like a route that you're really proud of in the past.
Yeah.
So um, I remember the feeling when I was stood at the bottom of Fork Lightning Crack, and when I did the hardest thing, which was committed to trying that route. I can't put that feeling into words for anyone else, but I
Yeah.
know what it feels like. And when I'm ever thinking about, either a route that's going to be challenging for me or a competition, you remember what that feeling feels like, and that helps to kind of trigger it in your mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So you're using a
so yeah.
process of visualization to bring you, I guess, into that moment and try and
Mm,
feel those feelings to I guess make you feel good in yourself to be able to I guess do what you need to do and try and relieve that pressure.
yeah. Obviously, visualization isn't really the best thing because it's not like for me especially, it's not like a visual thing, it's a feeling. But
Okay.
I don't think feelingization is really a
Yeah,
word.
yeah, but
So
I guess so. Visualization is on it's not just seeing.
yeah.
I think it's everything, isn't it? It's the projecting yourself for the people that can visualize it, as in physically see it, but
Mm.
then also you're thinking on a level of feeling and so many other levels to put yourself back into that situation.
I'm kind of imagining the physiological clues
Yeah,
is what I'm doing.
yeah,
So I'm thinking about, my breathing rate, my pulse rate, um, and the kind of the proprioception, the feedback that my body is giving me. That's what I'm remembering from previous encounters and
yeah,
what I'm trying to recreate as a means to calm myself and get myself into a state where I'm ready to perform optimally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. And so and what do you feel? I might know the answer, but what do you feel your superpower is when it comes to the mental side of climbing?
To the mental side of climbing, I think. Um, yeah, probably being able to calm myself and recover when the situation gets serious. I think that's probably what I'm best at.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
So I guess
I think
emotional control.
I think so. Yeah. In terms of, I thought you were going to ask me about physical, and then from a physical standpoint, my superpower is definitely endurance. That is because of the way I climb, something that's really important to me, but also something that I think I'm quite good at. It's quite funny actually. So I train with Lattice, and they do their physical assessment, and they give you a graph of what your metrics are relative to your grade, and
Okay.
all of my metrics for my grade were very average until I got to endurance, and I was just off the chart into like 1,700% off the chart. So,
That's amazing.
so I need pumpy roots, is
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah, yeah,
saying. Yeah.
yeah.
If you give me
Overhanging
pumpy
roots.
roots, I'll be all right. I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, because overhanging roots kind of punish me because I climb so slowly. It takes me much longer than it would for a sighted climber. So the difficulty on those routes is kind of ramped up, but kind of where it's maybe gently overhanging and you are on your arms and there's no real rests. Like I've not been to Chilila, but plenty of people have told me that those routes are just long and endurancey, and there's no one crux move, but
Yeah.
it's just a continual grind.
Yeah, yeah,
Those are probably the routes I'm going to be best at.
yeah, yeah. And I guess same in Leonidio and same in Kalymnos,
Yeah,
or similar moves, similar style of climbing, just really, 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 really long. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to the emotional control, I guess you use a lot of self-talk, talking in your head.
Occasionally, yeah, occasionally. I probably can't repeat any of it because it's laced with profanity. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I can relate to that. Cool. So if you were to give last question, if you were to give one piece of advice to other climbers when it comes to the mental side of it, what advice would you give them?
I think for me, it would be to find out what the physiological clues are that allow you to relax and pay attention to those.
Yeah,
So I mentioned it earlier. When I train my endurance on a circuit board, I get to this point where I can feel a little tingle in my forearms when they start to recover and depump. And that's really important for me because I know that if I feel that tingle in my forearms, I can totally relax because I can hang here forever. And then that's like a clue for me if I'm on a trad route and I'm feeling scared, but I can get to a point where I can recover and get that tingle in my forearms. That helps me to relax.
yeah,
So find a physiological clue that works for you to relax yourself.
yeah. Okay. Do you feel that
Yeah.
you're able to f focus when you are completely pumped?
Yeah, I think so.
I see. I can't. My ability to focus diminishes when I get
Okay.
really pumped. I really struggle to focus, and all
Okay.
I can think about is the next move, as opposed to thinking about good body position. And
Okay.
that's for me. That's what I'm training.
Maybe maybe not when I get to 100% pump, but when I'm at kind of 80 to 90% pump, I feel it in my forearms, and that forces me to really think about my body position because
Yep.
I want to be as biomechanically efficient as I possibly can be to take as much strain off my arms.
Yep.
So I think I'm actually quite good at that, especially in a training kind of context.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Cool. Amazing. Well, thanks for your time,
cool,
Jesse.
awesome.
Be really nice to chat. I hope you enjoyed listening to Jesse and his story. It was really nice to have a chat with him. I can definitely see his pragmatic approach in climbing, and there's definitely lots of things that I feel that I'm able to relate to in all the lessons that he's learned. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you have any suggestions on topics you'd like us to cover or any people you'd like us to interview, please feel free to email us or send us a suggestion via social media. We'll see you next time.